So today's Daf Yomi is Yevamos Ayin Beis. We're going to start on 72a, 7 lines from the top. The Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan, Kol San Arba'im Shana, Shayu Yisrael B'Midbar, all those 40 years that the Jewish people were in the wilderness, Lo Hayayom Shal Nashva Bo Ruach Tzifonis B'Chatzi Alayla. There was no day where the northern wind didn't come and help them in the middle of the night. As it states, Vahi B'Chatzi Alayla, it was in the middle of the night, Hashem Hika Kol B'Chor, and Hashem struck down all the firstborn. So we see that Hashem struck them down in the middle of the night. So we see my Talmud. Well, how do we learn from here that Hashem helped the people in the wilderness in the middle of the night? Where says no, that pasuk is telling us a Kamash Mohan, the Eis Ratzon, Milsei, that the idea that the middle of the night is an Eis Ratzon is an actual entity, that's a real thing. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Amar Afuna Devar Torah. Rav Huna says, biblically speaking, Mashach, a Mashach, we'll define it now, and then we'll refer to this term throughout the rest of the daf. The Mashach is a person who was circumcised, and then he reversed his circumcision. That's called a Mashach. So a Mashach, or a person who was circumcised, and then he reversed his circumcision, Ochel B'Truma. Biblically speaking, he's allowed to eat the Truma, but rabbinically, God's love nation Nirakaral. Rabbinically speaking, we require him to circumcise himself again before he can eat the truma, Nirakaral, because he looks like he's uncircumcised. Again, an Aral is an uncircumcised person. Now, Rashi says he's uncircumcised. We don't care why he's uncircumcised, even if it's because his brothers were hemophiliacs. But Tosfos says no, it's only a person who's lahachas, who intentionally decides not to uncircumcise because he doesn't want to do the mitzvah of Milah. So again, Rav Huna's position is that a person who is mashach rabbinically is required to circumcise himself. So the Gemara challenges Rav Huna. How do we challenge Rav Huna? The Gemara challenges it. Mashach tzarich sheyimol. So it says in the Brisa that the person who is a mashach is required to circumcise himself. So the Gemara says, well, that's midrabanan. That doesn't mean that it's biblically required, which is against what Rav Huna says. Rav Huna says it's only rabbinically required. So therefore, this Brisa is actually in line with Rav Huna. The Gemara says, well, what was even your havamina? My karila, your thought that this was that this Brisa was saying biblically required? What was your even thought process there? But it says he needs to do it, which implies that it's only rabbinically that he needs to. The word sarach is not the lashon, it's not the language that'll be used for a biblical requirement. So the Gemara says, katai b'seifa. No, the person who asked the question made the mistake about the seifa, because what did the concluding clause say? Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo yimol nesha sakana hilo. Rabbi Yehuda says he's not supposed to circumcise because it's a danger for him. Nesha sakana hilo. Rabbi Yehuda said that the mashach shouldn't circumcise himself because if he circumcises himself after he has pulled the skin back over himself to cover up to make it look like he's circumcised, that's dangerous and he can end up hurting himself. So they responded, and this is where the question came from. During the days of Ben Kuziba, that's Bar Kokhba, and we're doing this stuff on the eve of Lag BaOmer. And some say that Lag BaOmer was a military victory for Bar Kokhba. During those days, the Romans had said that you have to reverse your circumcision. And then during the days of Bar Kokhba, they went ahead and they circumcised themselves. And they gave birth to many children. So we see that it's not a problem to circumcise yourself after you were mashach. As it states, even 100 times you can circumcise yourself. The Omer is prisihe fair. The rabbos, as a mashach, it says, as prisihe fair, this comes to include the mashach. The person who is mashach needs to circumcise himself again. And Gemara says, why do we need two psukim? Because if he might have thought, you might have said, well, no, the second pasuk, this pasuk of himo, first verse, not coming to tell us anything about us. So let's say you have strands that they prevent the circumcision. So therefore, we have a second pasuk that the mashach needs circumcised. So who saber, the person who raised this price of the question on Rav Huna, who said midika nasav shas kraf, from the fact that the pasuk cites a verse we see from here that it's biblical. It says himol yimol, and also hafer yefer. Fair. So it has BCA fair. So we might as well from here we see that this is a deraisa. Below it's not the case. It's midrabanan. It's a rabbinic law. Cross machta ba'alma, and the pasuk is just a support, but it's just a rabbinic law. So the Gemara challenges Rav Huma again. Meisvei tumtum ein ochel b'truma. We have a brayse that says that the tumtum. What's a tumtum? A tumtum is a person who his genitalia are covered up, so we're not sure if he's a man or a female. So he's not allowed to eat from the truma out of the concern that maybe he's a male and then he'd be uncircumcised. But nashav, which usually means his wife, v'avadav, and his slaves, ochel, they can eat from the truma. Whereas a mashach, and now the second category is a mashach, i.e. the person who reversed the circumcision, but noah kishuma, or the person who was born circumcised, they can't eat from the truma. Whereas an androgynous, ochel b'truma, an androgynous is a person who has the characteristics of both the man and the woman. An androgynous does not eat from. Androgynous can eat from the truma because we assume he's circumcised. And also, in addition to that, he cannot eat from the kachim because the kachim can only be eaten by a man. Kachim, the most sacred of the sake of sacrificial offerings, like a chatas, you have to be a male kohen, and we don't know for sure that the androgynous is a man. So we see from here, and it includes tumtum ein ochel of a truma below the kachim, but the tumtum cannot eat the truma or the kachim. Anyway, we see from here katani mias mashach v'noach shumo arei ochel. We see from here that the mashach and the person who's born circumcised, they can eat from the truma. So this is a refutation of Rav Huna, because Rav Huna says rabbinically you need to circumcise. Rav says to Rav Huna to Yufta. Indeed, it's a refutation of Rav Huna. Amar Mar, so we learn tumtum einu ochel b'truma. The tumtum does not eat from the truma, but his nashav, his wife, and his zavada of ochel. His wife and his slaves do eat from the truma. The Gemara asks the question: nashav a tumtum in no way. How does a tumtum have a wife? He can't get married. We don't know if he's a man. Gemara says, if you want to say, well, he betrothed the woman, and then out of stringency we require a get, we require a divorce. The Tanya tumtum shakidesh kedushin. Tumtum betroths a woman, it's a vow betrothal. This kadesh, if the tumtum was betrothed by a man, we're also going to say kedushin. Amar da'amar. When would we say that? Only to be strict, but we don't say that to be lenient. Safek Isha, we're not sure if this person's even a woman. A woman can't betroth another woman. So Amar Abaye, Kishabates of Nikaras Mevachot. Abaye says, no, what we're talking about here is we know he's a man because we see his testicles, but we don't see his member. So therefore, that's what the tumtum is here. We know he's not a woman. Therefore, his betrothal is a vow of betrothal. Rava says, no, what we're talking about here is my nashav imo. It means his mother. It means that because this person was a descendant of a Kohen, he's going to allow his mother to eat the truma. Or says, well, pshita, his mother, of course she can eat the truma because she has a descendant. The Gemara says, no, he might have said, he might have said the dispensation that allows the mother to eat the truma on the behalf of her descendant through the power of her descendant. That's only if the descendant is able to give birth themselves to children. In this case, the tumtum can. So we say, Kamashwan, the descendant doesn't need to be able to give birth. We learned tumtum einu ochel b'truma v'lo b'kachim. We learned that a tumtum does not eat from truma or kachim. So that's what the end of the brayso said. So Bishlam Abaye, it makes sense according to Abaye, who said that we know that he's not really a tumtum. He's not that he's a male. So Tana Reisha Arovada. In the first case, we say he's completely uncircumcised because that's this case that there's baits of Arnikaros. And the Katani Seif and the concluding clause talks about where his suffix are, where his testicles are not visible, so we don't know if he's uncircumcised. We need both of the cases. El Rava, but according to Rava, Tumta the Seif Lamali, according to Rava, why do we need Rava says that in both cases we don't know if it's a male or female. Why do we need to repeat this case of the Tumtum in the concluding clause? The Gemara says that Rava says, my Tumtum RL. What is it talking about in the concluding clause? Where we know he's certainly an RL. So the Gemara says, well, that doesn't make any sense. Hasha Safek RL, lo achel vade RL. If the case is a person who's a doubtful RL, because we don't know if he's revealed, we don't know if he's a man or not, and he can't eat Vade aro achel, for sure, a certain aro cannot eat. So the Gemara says, no, it's a matam kamar. What's the reason? That's what the concluding clause of the Bryce is just explaining the initial clause. Matam tumtum ein ochel b'truma. What's the reason that a tumtum cannot eat from the truma? Because the tumtum is by definition a person we're not sure if he's uncircumcised. And an aro cannot eat from truma or kachim. The Gemara says, Lema Ketanai. Let's say that this is a dispute amongst the Tanaim. Now, let us say that this matter is a dispute amongst the Tanaim, because this matter that Rafuna said that biblically speaking, you don't need to circumcise a mashuch, but rabbinically speaking, we require it. Because what's the Bryce to say? Mashuch, if you are a mashuch, if you uncircumcised yourself, a gersh and a sky or a kashum, and a convert who converted when he was already circumcised, the katan shavar is mano, and a minor who passed being already 8 days old, the kohani mulim, and all those who are already circumcised. Where the Gemara interrupts the Bryce and says, "Whoa, what's that including?" The suye comes to include mishiyeshel shtei arelos, somebody who has 2 foreskins. He was circumcised once, and now he has another foreskin. The Tanna Kama says their circumcision can only take place during the day. Whereas Rabbi Elazar Shimon says, Bismano, that if they are being circumcised on the 8th day, then it can only take place during the day. Bismano, we're on the top of 72b. Bismano enimono bayom during the on the 8th day can only be done during the day. Shelo bismano nimon bayom ubalaya. But if it's not day 8, they can be circumcised during the day and at night. So says the Gemara, what's the nature of their dispute? Must be the Mar Savar, one is of the position, Mashach Dioraisa, and Mashach is Dioraisa, and so therefore the Tanna Kama is saying that Mashach, biblically speaking, requires a circumcision, needs to be done during the day. Mar Savar Mashach Dirabanan, whereas the other position is that Mashach is rabbinic, and that's why Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon says it can even be done at night. So the Gemara says, that doesn't make any sense. You think Katan Shavar is mano, and the Tanna Kama says that a minor after day 8 also requires circumcision during the day. You think Katan Shavar is mano, Miko Manda Amar D'Rabbanan. Is there anybody who says that that's a rabbinic requirement to circumcise? Of course, it's a biblical requirement. And the Kuliyama Mashach D'Rabbanan. Everybody says the uncircumcised, the person who reverses circumcision, just rabbinically requires a circumcision. The katan shavers mano dioraisa, and also everybody says that the child who's after 8 days old is a biblical requirement. What's their argument? Mar savar darshinan uvayom, umar savar lo darshinan uvayom. It says by uvayom ashmini yimol basar also. On the 8th day you have to circumcise. So we see from here that one who says uvayom says that all circumcision, not just day 8, needs to take place during the day. Whereas the one who says we don't make that drasha says only day 8 has to be done during the day, but the other ones can be done at night. That's what Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon says. One time Rabbi Yochanan was sitting the Kadarish and he gave a drasha. He said, "No sar bismano." This is the law of expired meat. That's called no sar. Now, if it's on the day that it expired, Eino nisraf al biyom. Rabbi Yochanan says it needs to be burnt during the day. Shelo bismano, but if it's not the day it expired, nisraf bein b'yom bein b'layla. It could be burnt during the day and at night. Rabbi Elazar is sitting with Rabbi Yochanan, and he said, "Eli elanimo shmini." I only know in a circumstance where I only know from Uvayom where he was circumcised on day 8. That has to be taking place during the day. So how do I know if that he's circumcised after day 8? It also has to be done during the day. It says Uvayom to mean all circumcision can only take place during the day. According to the opinion that says we don't expound the Vav Hey, but the Vav and Hey of Vahanosar Ba'ish Tisrofu Darish, that we do make such a drush that it can only be done during the day. Ishtik, Rabbi Yochanan was quiet. Bazar Dinafik, after Rabbi Elazar left, Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan turned to his Chavrusa, his brother-in-law Rish Lakish, and he says, Ra'isi Uben Pedas, Yoshe Bedoros Kamo Moshe Ipiadvor. He said, I just saw Ben Pedas, i.e. Rabbi Elazar Ben Pedas, who came and sat and gave a drasha just like Moses from God. Amarle Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says, "Didehi, you think this was Rebbe Lazar's drasha? Must need say it's a brisa." Hechatana. So Yochanan says, "Where was this brisa taught?" He says, "B'Torah's Kohanim. It was taught in Leviticus." Nafik Tanya B'Tlasi Yami. Rabbi Yochanan went out and learned it over 3 days. Svara B'Tlasi Yarchi, and he analyzed it over the next 3 months. Amar Rabbi Lazar then taught Aral Shehiza. We're going to now spend a couple of days talking about Aral and all the different laws relating to this Aral, this uncircumcised man. Aral Shehiza is so kashera. If an Aral sprinkles the ashes of the red heifer on a person to be matayar him to purify this person, it's a valid sprinkling of the ashes of the red heifer. Midei dahavi atful yom, because it's like the person who's a tful yom, i.e., the person who immersed in the mikvah but needs to wait till nightfall in order to eat the truma. Shafal pisha aser b'truma kasher b'para. The tful yom, even though he's not allowed to eat the truma, he's kosher to sprinkle the ashes of the red heifer. Gemara says, what kind of comparison is this? Mal tful yom shekim mutter b'maiser. A tful yom is permitted to eat maiser shenis, and an aral presumably is not. Gemara says, atu ananu achil kamrinan, ananu nagia kamrinan. We're not talking about eating, we're talking about touching. And we're saying tful yom she'aser b'negia de truma para, just like the tful yom who's not allowed truma is allowed to the ashes of the red heifer. Aral shemutter b'negia Eino din shemutter b'para. The aral who's allowed to touch the truma, for sure he's allowed to touch the ashes of the red heifer. And Tanya Nami, indeed we went to the Brisa. Aral shehiza azaso kashera. An aral who sprinkled the ashes of the red heifer, it's valid. Maisa it was an incident, and the rabbi said that the sprinkling of the ashes was correct. So the Gemara says, Mesa, we challenge this from a brisa because it says tumtum shakidesh. If there was a tumtum who was mekadesh, what did he do? He mixed the ashes of the red heifer with the mechatas in order to sanctify the water. So tumtum shakidesh, kidisho pasul. It's disqualified, but meshu suffik aral, because we're not sure if he's an aral. The aral pasul a kadesh, and an aral can't do it. The androgynous shakidesh kosher, but kiddusha kosher. If an androgynous does it, it's kosher. And Rabbi Yehuda says, "Af androgynous shakidesh kiddusha psulim." Rabbi Yehuda says that even androgynous is disqualified, meshu suffik isha, because we're not sure if he's a woman. Isha psulim el kadesh. And a woman is disqualified from sanctifying the ashes of the red heifer. But anyway, we say from here specifically, Katani Mia Aral Vasafik Aral Pasim and Kaddish. They can't do it. And you said they can do it. Rav Yosef, no, I Tana the Rabbi Akiva who the Marbele Aral Katami. That brisa is like Rabbi Akiva, who says that the Aral is like the Tame, the Tanya Rabbi Akiva, Omer, Ishish, Rabos, Aral. It's to include the Aral. Amar Rabba Yasivna Kameder Rav Yosef and it was difficult for me. We'll stop here. We'll pick this up, God willing, tomorrow at the regular time.